I decided to surprise my wife, Lauren, the CEO of the tech company Merid. Just like that, for no reason, I picked up her favorite lunch from an Italian restaurant downtown and drove to her office. A strict sign hung at the main entrance, authorized personnel only. I approached the security guard and introduced myself as the CEO's husband. The man behind the desk looked at me with a skeptical smile. "Sir," he said, "I see her husband every day. He asked just coming out now." And he nodded towards the glass doors. A man in his 40s emerged, in a perfectly tailored dark suit, with an expensive watch on his wrist, the type who looks like he stepped off the cover of Forbes. The security guard called out to him, "Mr. Sterling, your wife is still in a meeting." The man, Frank Sterling according to his badge, nodded and headed for the elevator without even glancing my way. Something inside me shuddered. Lauren and I have been married for 28 years. I was always her support, the one who managed the household, paid the bills, created stability while she built a dazzling career, from an MBA at Northwestern to CEO of a multi-million-dollar company in 8 years. I was proud of her, supported every late night and every business trip. We didn't have children. She said it would hinder her career. He agreed, believing her success was our shared success, and now the guardi was calling another man her husband. Calmly, as a matter of fact, I didn't make a scene. I told the guard he must have the wrong building, left the bag of food for Lauren from a family friend, and walked out onto the street. My heart was pounding radically. I spent the rest of the day in a daze. Lauren texted that she'd be late. I replied tersely. When she returned late that evening, I asked how her day was. Tired, she started talking about a tough day, about meetings, and then mentioned she had reviewed quarterly reports with Frank. "How is this Frank doing?" I asked casually. "Oh, he is an excellent professional," she replied animatedly. "We ray on the same wavelength about almost everything." Her eyes sparkled in a way they had when she talked to me about our plans. Then I said I had stopped by her office with lunch that afternoon. A barely noticeable shadow flickered across her face, a brief pause that only someone who had lived side by side with her for nearly 3 decades would catch. "That's strange. I didn't get anything," she said. I replied that I had given the bag to Frank Sterling to pass on. "He must have forgotten in the chaos." She shrugged, and conversation died. But the perfection of her lie was soul-chilling. I waited until she was sound asleep. Her laptop in the study was unlocked. She never hid anything from me. After all, I was her husband, her foundation. I knew the password, our wedding date. In her calendar, I saw what I should do and thave. Not just business meetings, but dinners at cozy, expensive Italian restaurants, bookings for luxury suites at mountain resorts, all marked with the initial F. And Frank Sterling's name was everywhere. The pattern stretched back 3 years. Lauren had told me she was going to a women leaders conference, while she and Frank were flying to Santorini. The next day, I rummaged through her the angs. In the far corner of her jewelry box, under unwanted trinkets, lay a simple silver key. Attached to it was a keychain with an address, Harborview Apartments, Unit 214, an elite complex right in the city center. The key fit. I entered my wife's other life. The spacious, bright apartment smelled of her favorite Chanel No. 5 perfume, which she saved for special occasions. On a shelf were their photos, on the beach, in the mountains, at dinner. Her hand in those pictures bore an outing ring. 2 coffee mugs stood in the kitchen. In the bedroom, her dressing next to his suits. This wasn't a secret rendezvous spot, it was a home. On the dresser lay a folder labeled Future Plans. Inside were printouts of houses and prestigious names with notes about schools and proximity to Frank's parents, travel recures, and beneath it all legal documents, consultations with 3 different divorce lawyers, dated a year and a half ago. Cold, calculated notes, present as irreconcilable differences, cite Gerald's lack of ambition and emotional detachment, provide examples where he didn't support my career growth. She was building a dossier against me, turning her ordinary domestic spats into evidence. The last note read, "File for divorce by January 2025. Wedding with F by Christmas 2025. I had been replaced, and with my own money and support, I had been funding this plan. As an accountant, I dug deeper into orphanances. Our joint account should have shown substantial savings. Instead, I discovered that over 250 over 3 years had been drained for the rent off the apartment, furniture from expensive stores, plane tickets, and dinners. My wife was funding her second life with our shared money, which I had honestly earned. But the most serious discovery awaited in her company as corporate reports. Using my professional skills, I saw that Lauren had illegally, without the board's knowledge, been reallocating company resources, artificially bolstering Frank's department and preparing him for that role. She wasn't just cheating, she was violating her fiduciary duties to shareholders by promoting her lover. I gathered everything: photos of the apartment, scans of the divorce plans, 3 years of bank statements, and a list of corporate documents. I organized it all on a flash drive. Then I called Richard Morrison, the chairman of the Meridian board. I am and with an impeccable reputation. I have information about serious misconduct at the company, I said. We met at my house. When I walked him through all the evidence, his face turned to stony. Good Lord, she was building his career with our money, he muttered. I gave him the flash drive. Richard thanked me and promised to act. Lauren came home from work earlier than usual. She was pale with rage. You son of a bitch, you called Morrison. My own husband is trying to destroy me. She shouted from the doorway. I stood calmly. I simply gave the board information they were entitled to have. She screamed about invading her privacy, and our shared apartment, which you paid for with our shared money, is that privacy too? I asked. I showed her the photos from apartment 214 on my phone. Seeing the pictures and her future plans folder, she collapsed into a chair. How did you, she whispered, 28 years. Lauren, I was your foundation. And for 3 years, you've been building an exit from our marriage and making me pay for it. She burst into tears, said she was sorry, that it all just happened, offered to go to counseling, to fix everything. When were you going to tell me, before the divorce or after the wedding with Frank? I asked. She didn't answer. The silence was more eloquent than any words. That same night, I moved to a hotel. The consequences came swiftly. Frank Sterling was fired immediately. Lauren was suspended from her duties, and a full-scale investigation began. Soon, she was forced to resign with its severance. Their romance didn't survive the career crash. They broke up quickly, blaming each other. The divorce proceeded quickly thanks to ironclad evidence. I got our house. She got only her tarnished reputation. Time passed. I sold the house full of ghosts and bought a small apartment by the lake. Gradually, I began to trust people again. One day at the supermarket, I accidentally bumped into Lauren. She looked older, worn out. Our eyes met. I just nodded and walked past. And in that moment, I felt no pity, no anger, only a quiet, heavy freedom. Sometimes people ask me, maybe I should have given her a chance, talked in private. No, she had 30 years of chances, 3 years to choose me, our marriage, our integrity. She chose differently. I just stopped pretending I didn't see that choice. No, me life has no grand careers, secret apartments, or elaborate schemes. There is a simple, honest, madam's difficult present. And you know what? That is more than enough.